Hi friends, it's Sarah from rufflesandrainboots.com, and today I'm sharing the highly anticipated Chunky Garden Gnome. This guy is big. He's decked out in a cool detailed hat, a full apron, he's got cute little gardening gloves, a seed packet, and I even made little clay tools. If you would like to make him, just boop, stick around. As always, please give this video a like so I know you're here. Now, the Chunky Gnome pattern, which I'll link down below, will have the cuts for everything. Our first and basically the only, intense part is to put everything right sides together, pin it in place, and take it to your sewing machine. You're going to start and reverse your stitches, and you're going to use a generous 1/4 seam allowance. To put on the base, you put the right side facing in and then split all the pins around. This will be a flat base. You can see how there's no puckering in the actual fabric, and then you can just take that base side up to your sewing machine and go all the way around, taking care to move the body portion away from where you're sewing, just so nothing gets bunched up. And you can see here all the way around, make sure everything is solid before moving on to the next step, which is turning it right side out, running those seams along the bottom between your fingers so they sit flat, and then moving on to everything else. So here you can see I'm moving on to the arms, which are basically two very long rectangles. Now, I know they look longer than they need to be, and that is built that way for a reason. So just go ahead. I'm using fleece here for my body, my arms, my nose, and then I'm using a cotton for my mittens and my pocket on my apron. So again, all I'm going to do here is fold down and do a seam right here, a hem right here on the top of my mittens. Then I'm going to put them right sides together so you can see the seam, the prettiness along the top. I'm just going to put two pieces of them together after I snip off all the seams right here. And then if you're new to sewing, just go slow when you go around any curved section, especially the thumb. You'll see how mine turned out. I really like a distinct thumb. So here I'm just making it a little easier to sit flat by taking pinking shears along those curved edges and then turning them right side out using a dowel or a pencil eraser, something to poke out the seam there. And then running along in between my fingers, and you can see it's ready for the arm. All right, so here we have everything, our body, our arms, our mittens, our nose cut out from the pattern. I have a semi-completed hat and a completed apron. I have shared the apron and the hat on how to do both of those already on the channel. Now what we're going to do is add a generous weight to the bottom of this. I use 3 cups of poly beads, poly pellets, which are non-odor, non-moisture absorbing. Then I stuff the rest of this body up until this bounce out section, so you can have either a booty or a bum, or a booty or a belly, but our goal is just to make it very very firm. It's ready when it pops out on its own. When you press into it anywhere on the body and it bounces back to its original size, it's ready. That's enough polyfill. So a couple taps on the table there, and I press to make sure, and we're ready for the wire. I'm using a 14 gauge wire for my arms, but before I do that, I wanted to share, everybody's loving this nose in the Chunky Gnome. It is a big boy. But what we're going to do is start on the outside edge of the fabric. We're going to do a running stitch all the way around and stuff that very full of polyfill. And then what we're doing is we made a very long tail, and we're going to use that tail to actually attach, so do not cut your strings. So once you've got your desired level of density on your nose, we're just going to double knot it. For me, because I'm using the same color fleece as I used for the body and the arms, I'm going to add a little blush here. You can also use chalk pastels to color the nose, or you can just use a different color of cotton fabric, fleece fabric, or nylon. All right, so now we're going to choose whether or not you want a belly or a booty. And for this little guy, I wanted the booty. So I'm just going ahead and tying the strings both on the top and around the back. I cut about 2 inches by 11 inches. In some places it ended up being 2 1/4 inches by 11 inches. But basically this is just going to give us a nice big full wraparound beard. But we're going to set that aside. If you are new to cutting faux fur, I have a tutorial for that here on the channel. We're going to take 14 gauge wire. We're going to press it all or push it all the way through, turn the front end down all the way into the mitten. So it's going to be right at the edge of the mitten. And then we're going to stuff the mitten. So we're going to remove the wire from the mitten, do the thumb first. I will say after making 6 or 7 of these, everybody really loves squeezing the little mittens. And if you don't have enough polyfill in there, especially in the thumb, it's never going to bounce back to its nice full, kind of look. So just make sure you really have that in there well. And then you're going to stuff the arms. So you can use hemostat scissors, you can use a pen to push this stuff in, a dowel, whatever you'd like. I like to pull long pieces of polyfill and roll it between my hands and then get it in there, roll the whole entire arm between my hands just to distribute that polyfill. And then I'm going to line the wire that we already cut, right? It's inside, it was going all the way into the mitten here. And just make sure that the actual curved part that you roll it over so it doesn't poke through your fabric. And you can see I'm making sure it's flat inside of my mitten before I call this done. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm squeezing it, making sure all of it bounces back. And then I'm going to pin this in place just so I can match up the other one without anything shifting. So fleece is one of those shifting fabrics, and we want to make sure that we secure everything before we secure everything. So I just repeated it with the second arm, and then I'm going to glue the mittens to the arm, both in the front and the back. So just as an FYI, you can make the seam on the inside or put it to the back. It's your preference. And you can also sew on this mitten. You can add a cute little ribbon trim, whatever you'd like. Okay, so now we have 2 arms, and we're not done with them because we're going to now bend them, and you have to put these on the garden gnome specifically 1 inch above the neck. And the reason we're doing that is because we're going to attach the arms to the hat, and that's how we get a nice secure fit all the way around. So you can see here, I'm just going to pin this in place, and then I've already bent the arms a little just to get an idea of where they should be. And then I'm going to match up the second arm, there you go, and just pin that in place as well. So I know that these look longer than they need to be, but that is because we are using these to support our body and hats. So I cut about 20 inches of embroidery thread uncut, and now I'm going to sew on the arms. So I'm going in through the body, which is stuffed up all the way, and I'm going to make an entire stitch across the top of the body here. So there's going to be, you can see like my straight stitch. Sorry, this is my secondary camera because my first camera failed when I was recording all of this, but you can see it's just a straight stitch all the way across, and then I do X's all the way up back the other way, and that provides a really solid connection. All right, so you can see it there. And then I just repeat it with the second arm, and then I had a little piece of the wire hanging out of one of them, so I just snipped that off the top, and now I'm just going to finish up that second arm. I'm speeding this up because this is what takes the longest part of this entire gnome, honest to goodness. It'll take you about 50 minutes start to finish to make this guy. All right, so this is the fur we cut earlier. I'm using an Alaskan Husky for this. I just got it on Amazon. And I'm just going to line up the back here, and then I'm going to hot glue this down. Using too big of a hot glue gun, I'm going to go get the little guy and use that so I can really lay on a good bit of glue. You are going to glue over the arms. You're not going to glue over that top that's above the body, but you are going to glue over the arms. So what I did was I tied the apron below the arms so that you could still see the strings of my apron under the beard, but I didn't have to like try and glue over my apron strings, if that makes sense, because that's not a very secure fit. So here you can see, before I move on, and just make sure that it sets, and then I'm going to add a generous portion of hot glue all along the top inch or so of this. You can see it, ready? I'm leaving the bottom open because if I glued it to the bottom of the arms, then nothing would move, right? We would basically rip our connection. So here you can see I'm just going to take care, making sure that I don't get any glue in the fur. It's just not a good day. It's just really not a good day. So just make sure that you're just gluing this top bit excuse me, all the way around. Get your fingers out of the way because hot glue is hot. And then keep going. So I get a lot of questions about faux fur. I just ordered this from Amazon in a 10 by 10 inch square, and it's an Alaskan Husky, and it's really pretty. There's a little bit of color just on the tips, but because I had a cream gnome, I wanted it kind of all to be nice and blended in together. I wanted the apron and the hat and the little extras that I made to really steal the show. If you visit the link in the description box below, I'll actually give you the seed packet so you can just print that out. You can make your own. I'll give you the template and everything. And for the little hoe and the little rake, all I did was a little polymer clay. I did put a wire in it to make sure that it stayed, and then I just covered the handles with napkins using decoupage. That's it. So I don't have a tutorial for that because I figure you can all figure out how to roll a stick of clay into a rake and into a little hoe and cover it with a napkin. I believe they were napkins from the Dollar Tree because they were like a really pretty floral. All right, so you've cut this so it lines up perfectly. You don't want to glue fur to fur. So in order to attach the nose, I wanted a little bit of the fur to be above the nose, so I split the fur horizontally so that I could attach my nose. So here you can see I'm going in from the front, going into the body, and then I'm just going to sew along that top edge all the way across the nose and pulling it down to where the little wrinkled parts are hidden. And then I'm using a different string. I'm just going to go in through the bottom. That's it. And it's really, really secure so people can honk and boop and whatever the little noses that they want. And this is what it is when you brush the fur down over the nose. So in the previous video, I did share how to make this hat super easy with Mod Podge, and I'm just going to press it on, and you can see I'm going to move the fur out of the way, and I'm going to glue the hat right here to both the arms, and I'm going to glue it down to the body in the back. And there you go. Guess what? You're all done. Look at him. Look at his little booty. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think of this guy? Again, down in the description box, you can get the pattern and you can get the little printout for the seed packet. As always, thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe. And here is a Chunky Gnome playlist for inspiration.